Right now, as you read this, something invisible is happening around you. Billions of messages are traveling across the planet. Trillions of bits are racing through fiber optic cables at the bottom of the oceans, bouncing between cell towers, bouncing off satellites thousands of miles above your head. Emails, photos, videos, calls, banking transactions, GPS signals, medical data, military commands, memes, declarations of love, pizza orders, all at the same time, all in milliseconds. Everything arriving on the other side practically perfect. And no one stops for a second to think, how is this possible? How is it possible for so much information to travel through channels full of interference, full of noise, full of physical and electromagnetic obstacles, and arrive intact at the other end? The answer is a code, not a programming code, not a secret code, a mathematical code, a principle, a law. And I discovered it in 1948, decades before the internet existed. I need to take you back to the world before this discovery so you understand how much has changed. In the 1940s, communication was a hand-to-hand fight against chaos. Every time a signal traveled down a wire, it arrived degraded, distorted, corrupted by noise. The engineers at Bell Labs, where I worked, knew this problem intimately. They dealt with him every day. They lost nights of sleep because of him. And the solution they used was brutal in its simplicity. If the message arrived wrong, send it again. Repetition, gross redundancy. If a bit has a chance of being corrupted, send the same bit 3 times and see which result appears the most. 2 out of 3 say it's 1, so it's probably 1. Does it work? Yes, most of the time. Is it efficient? Absolutely not. Because for every real bit of information, you are sending 3 bits, its efficiency dropped by 1/3. And if the channel is very noisy and 3 copies are not enough, send 5, or 7, or 10, efficiency plummets, speed falls apart, and even then, it never reaches 0 errors. There is always a chance, however small, that noise will corrupt most copies and the receiver will make the wrong decision. That was the approach before me. Brute force, blind repetition, throwing redundancy at the problem until it gave way. And everyone thought that was the only way. That there was an inescapable trade-off between speed and reliability. Want fewer errors? Transmit slower, repeat more, use more energy? Want to stream faster? Accept more mistakes, live with imperfection? Pray that the important message is not the one that gets corrupted. It seemed like a law of nature, an immutable rule, a fact of life that every engineer learned to live with, and I was completely wrong. What I discovered in 1948 shattered that belief. I prove mathematically that there is a way to transmit information over a noisy channel with as little error rate as you want, without sacrificing speed to the limit of the channel's capacity. You can have speed and reliability at the same time. You don't have to choose, as long as you respect a limit. The channel capacity. Below this threshold, practical reliability is achievable. Above it, mistakes are inevitable no matter what you do. But up to the limit, you can have it all. Maximum speed with essentially 0 errors. This was revolutionary. It contradicted decades of practical experience and accumulated intuition. Engineers who spent entire careers accepting the trade-off suddenly heard a 32-year-old mathematician say, "The trade-off doesn't exist the way you think. There is a better way, and I can prove it. The secret is in the coding, not in the dumb repetition of bits, but in smart coding, structured mathematics." Let me explain the difference, because this is where everything changes. In simple repetition, you send the same bit several times. It's like shouting the same word 10 times to someone across a noisy field, hoping that person will hear it at least once. It works, but it's a monumental waste of energy and time. Redundancy is applied blindly, without intelligence, without strategy. Each protection bit is an exact copy of the original bit. No new information, just repetition. In smart coding, you do something completely different. You take the entire message, not bit by bit, but as a block, and add check bits that are mathematical functions of the original bits. These check bits are not copies. They are relationships, equations, logical connections between different parts of the message. And when the message arrives on the other side, the receiver uses these relationships to verify the integrity of the entire message at once. If something has been corrupted, the relationships don't match, and the specific pattern of inconsistencies reveals exactly which bit was corrupted, not approximately. Exactly, and the receiver corrects the error without needing anything to be retransmitted. No PED go to the transmitter to send it again. No delay, no waste. It's like the difference between keeping 10 copies of a document in a safe and installing a smart alarm system that detects any changes and automatically restores the original. The 10 copies take up 10 times as much space and can still all be tampered with if the thief is persistent enough. The alarm system takes up little space, consumes little energy, and protects against any intrusion within its limits. Smart coding is the alarm system. The repetition is 10 copies. I have proven that smart codes can be so efficient that the amount of redundancy required approaches the theoretical minimum. For every bit of real information, you need only a fraction of an additional bit for protection. Not 3 extra bits as in triple repeat, a fraction. And this fraction decreases as the code becomes more sophisticated and operates on larger blocks of data. Think about it like this. Imagine you want to protect a 100-page book from errors. The raw repetition approach would be to print 3 copies of the book, 300 pages to protect 100. And if an entire copy gets corrupted, you still have 2, but you've used up 3 times the paper. The smart coding approach would be different. It would add about 15 pages to the end of the book, with mathematical relationships between all the sentences in the book. If any sentence on any page becomes corrupted, these 15 pages allow you to reconstruct exactly what was there. 15 extra pages, not 200, and with stronger protection. Because the relationships are global, they connect every part of the book to every other part. An error anywhere is detected and corrected using information from everywhere else. Protection is distributed, intertwined, much more robust than 3 isolated copies that can be corrupted independently. But I need to be honest. In 1948, I proved that these codes exist. I proved that theoretical efficiency is achievable. But I didn't build the codes. I didn't give the recipe. I didn't deliver the project ready. I said, the solution exists, mathematics guarantees it, but finding it is your task. And this task took decades. Entire generations of mathematicians and engineers devoted entire careers to finding codes that approached the limit that I had proven possible. It was the greatest treasure hunt in the history of engineering, and the map was my theorem. The first were Hamming codes. Richard Hamming, my colleague at Bell Labs, created them in 1950. The story is almost comical. Hamming worked with a computer that ran calculations all weekends. When it found an error, the machine stopped. Hamming arrived on Monday and found everything locked. He was furious. It said, if the machine is smart enough to detect the error, why isn't it smart enough to correct it? And he invented code that did exactly that. Automatically detected and corrected 1-bit errors. It was the first practical error-correcting code in history. Elegant, simple, revolutionary for the time, but still far from my theoretical limit. Then came the Reed-Solomon codes in the 1960s, more powerful, capable of correcting not just individual bits, but entire bursts of consecutive errors. This was crucial for data storage, where physical defects in the medium could corrupt entire regions at once. Reed-Solomon codes are the reason scratched CDs and DVDs still work. Scratchers destroy thousands of bits, but the code reconstructs the original information from the bits that survived and the embedded mathematical relationships. The music plays perfectly. No flaws, without you realizing that the surface of the disc is damaged. In the 1970s and 1980s, convolutional codes and the Viterbi algorithm came along. Satellite communications and early digital networks adopted these technologies. The distance to the theoretical limit has decreased. But there was still a gap, a frustrating gap that seemed impossible to close. The engineers approached, but never stopped. The limit remained like a horizon. The further you walk, the further it recedes. Then came 1993, the year that changed the game. Claude Barou and Ailing Glaveo, two French researchers, presented turbo codes at a conference in Geneva. At first, almost no one paid attention. The results seemed too good to be true. Many thought there was an error in the calculations. But when they were independently verified, skepticism turned to shock. Turbo codes operated at fractions of decibels of the Shannon limit. 45 years after my article, engineering finally touched mathematics. The idea was ingenious. Two simple encoders working in parallel with a scrambler between them, and an iterative decoder that exchanged information between the two until they converged on the right answer. Simplicity in architecture, depth in mathematics. Results that shook the world. Then came the LDPC codes, rediscovered after being proposed by Robert Gallagher in 1960 and forgotten for decades. And in the 2000s, Earl Arikin proposed polar codes, the first proven to be capable of achieving channel capacity with viable computational complexity. The half-century search was complete. The code existed. It worked. It was practical, and it was ready to be placed inside every communications device on the planet. Now let me show you where these codes are. Because they are not in a laboratory. They are not in an academic article. They are in your life, right now, inside every device you use. Your cell phone uses Turbo or LNDPC codes for 4G communication. The 5G standard uses LNDPC codes for data and polar codes for control signals. Every time you send a message, make a call, watch a video, these codes are working in real time inside your phone's chip, encoding your data before transmitting. Decoding on the receiver, correcting dozens, hundreds, thousands of errors that the channel introduced. All in milliseconds, all invisible. You don't see errors being corrected, because they are corrected before they reach you. It's like having an invisible translator that intercepts every word distorted by the wind and restores it before it reaches your ear. You hear the conversation perfectly. You can't even imagine that half of the words arrived unrecognizable and were reconstructed along the way. Your home Wi-Fi works because of these codes. Newer standards use LDPC codes. The signal passes through walls, competes with the neighbor's Wi-Fi, with microwaves, with Bluetooth, with dozens of sources of interference. Each wall the signal passes through attenuates the power and distorts the waveform. Every appliance turned on adds electromagnetic noise to the environment. And still your videos upload and your files download, because the code is there. Invisible, silent, correcting errors non-stop. The code does not eliminate microwave interference. He survives her, absorbs the impact, and rebuilds what was damaged. The submarine cables that carry more than 95% of intercontinental internet traffic work because of these codes. Fiber optic cables stretch for thousands of kilometers on the bottom of the Atlantic and Pacific. They are invisible arteries that connect continents. The light traveling through them progressively attenuates kilometer after kilometer. Every 50 or 80 kilometers, optical amplifiers regenerate the signal. But each amplification also introduces noise. Optical noise that accumulates, that adds up, that grows with each stage. Without correction codes, the information would degrade catastrophically along the way. After dozens of amplifications along a 6,000-kilometer transatlantic cable, the original message would be unrecognizable. It would be pure static, noise without information. But codes protect every bit, correct every error. They absorb every disturbance that the amplifiers introduce, and the message arrives perfectly on the other side of the ocean. Every email you send to someone on another continent travels through these cables, protected by these codes, governed by the law I discovered. The Voyager probe, more than 24 billion kilometers from Earth, still transmits data because of these codes. Think about the scale of this. 24 billion kilometers. Light takes more than 22 hours to travel this distance. The signal that Voyager sends has a power of approximately 23 watts, less than a refrigerator light bulb. And when this signal reaches Earth after traveling 24 billion kilometers through the vacuum of space, the power captured by the antennas is absurdly small. Billions of times smaller than background noise. It would be absolutely indistinguishable from pure static without the error correction codes, but the codes are there, embedded in the signal, protecting every bit. And engineers on Earth extract information from this cosmic whisper with extraordinary precision. Each photo of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune traveled billions of kilometers and arrived sharp, not by luck, by mathematics. By the same mathematics that I published in 1948, your hard drive works because of these codes. Data is stored as tiny magnetic regions. Over time, regions become demagnetized and bits become corrupted. Without protection, your data would degrade within months. But codes embedded in the controller detect and correct these corruptions automatically. You never notice. The data seems perfectly stable. But behind this stability, a silent battle is going on all the time. The QR codes you scan at the restaurant use Reed-Solomon codes. Up to 30% of the code can be broken and it still works. This is why QR codes with logos is the center work. The logo destroys data, but the code reconstructs the gaps. Information survives despite damage. The streaming video you watch works because of these codes. Each video frame is compressed, divided into packets, protected with correction codes, transmitted over noisy channels, received, decoded, corrected, and displayed on your screen. 30-60 frames per second. Each one going through this entire process, without you noticing a single error, without a single pixel blinking wrong, because intelligent coding has absorbed every error before it reaches your eyes, all of it, every example, each technology, every device. It is a manifestation of the same law, from the same discovery, the same principle that I formulated in 77 pages in a technical article in 1948, the law that says there is a maximum capacity for any channel, that below this capacity, reliable transmission is possible through intelligent coding. As above, errors are inevitable, no matter how genius the engineer, how expensive the equipment, how sophisticated the algorithm. And that the path to reliability is not brute repetition, but intelligent coding, strategic redundancy, mathematics applied with surgical precision. This is what happens when your internet slows down, when the video freezes, when the call drops. It's no mystery, it's not a conspiracy, it is the law operating. The channel has become noisier, capacity has dropped, and the amount of data you are trying to send exceeds the new capacity. The correction codes are not enough. Errors exceed the ability to correct, and the system needs to step back, reduce the rate, or accept degradation. The law does not negotiate, it sets the limit. And when the limit is violated, the result is immediate and inevitable. When people talk about the internet as if it were magic, as if data simply flew from one place to another by some mysterious force, I want to be able to say, it's not magic, it's code. It's mathematics. There are equations working in real time inside each chip, each router, each tower, each satellite, each cable. Equations that derive from a law discovered thinking about copper wires and telephone signals. The internet is not a miracle that came out of nowhere. It is the materialization of a theorem, the physical construction of a mathematical truth. Living proof that when you discover a truly fundamental law, the consequences reverberate for decades in directions that not even the discoverer could imagine. I didn't imagine the internet. I didn't imagine smartphones. I didn't imagine streaming or social media or cloud computing. I imagined an equation and a proof. Sitting at a table in Bell Labs with pen and paper, no computer, no simulation, nothing but pure mathematics. The rest the world built, but it built upon my law. About my limits, about my theorems. Each bit that travels over the internet obeys the capacity of the channel. Each error correction code is measured by its proximity to the Shannon limit. Each digital communications system is evaluated by how close it operates to the ceiling I calculated. This is the invisible ruler that measures everything, the universal standard against which all communications technology is judged. This law rules everything, on your cell phone, on your Wi-Fi, on the cable under the ocean, on the satellite in space, on your computer's disk, in the menu QR code, in the streaming you watch, in the video call you make, in everything digital, in everything you transmit, in everything you communicate, silent, invisible, inviolable, operating every second of every day in every corner of the planet, without anyone noticing its presence. People live their entire lives using the internet, sending messages, watching videos, making calls, without knowing that each of these acts obeys a law discovered by a mathematician in 1948, without knowing that behind the perfect cell phone screen there is a constant war against noise, fought by mathematical codes that descend directly from a theorem. Not knowing that the reason it all works is that someone, almost 8 decades ago, proved it was possible. This law rules everything. And everything that exists in the digital world is living, pulsating, uninterrupted proof that it works.